From writing songs in a little room under the kitchen of the family home in Bangor at the age of just 15, to selling out huge rock and roll venues all over the world and shifting millions of records in the process. My guest today is Gary Lightbody.
If I lay here, if I just lay here, would you lie with me and just forget the world?
Gary, how are things at the minute, mate? How's the work?
Good, yeah, very good, thank you. Yeah, we're in the middle of making the next album and it's going really well.
Don't want to get you into any trouble, but what can you tell us about the new album? Is there anything you can reveal? What kind of themes you're exploring, where you're at with it?
It's an album about time, I guess, past, present and future. And I'm sort of looking back on the last 10 years of my life in a way, in a lot of ways. I guess some of that is probably finally coming to terms with the death of my father and, you know, like a lot of family stuff that's happened in the last while, and everything sort of seems to happen at once. You know, you have all these sort of cataclysmic events that happen at the same time. And I guess the album is kind of dealing with that. And also a lot of the old themes as well. Love, the breaking of love, and family and home and fear and joy, all the things. But
just the little things, just the little
things.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
think time, past, present, future has been a big theme throughout the record, and sort of trying to figure out a way in my own life of living for now rather than being stuck in the past or worried about the future. So that sort of keeps recurring through the lyrics.
Have you always dealt with tough times in your life through music? Is that how you make sense of cataclysmic events? You say your father dies, and is music what you turn to?
Obviously everybody goes through these things, so it is a sort of a collective experience as well, and you also draw on the experience of your friends and close friends and family, and try and not just sort of, it doesn't have to be a solitary experience, you know, it can be a communal experience. It can bring people together, those moments. It doesn't have to separate us and divide us. I think that's probably another theme, is the communion of grief or the communion of love. You know, they're both things that draw us together. They don't have to be so solitary, they don't have to be so devastating if they're shared, these moments, you know.
Family's always been a key thing for you, Gary, through your work, and something like a father passing is a cataclysmic thing for somebody so connected with the importance of family. It is something that you've always kind of dealt with, is family and your feelings on family, so that's something you'll continue to do.
Yeah, I mean, I've written a lot of songs about my dad. My mum goes, "Why haven't you written any songs about me?" I think I've always had a complicated relationship with my dad. We've always disagreed on a lot of things, and we argued until well into my 30s, and I always feel this sort of great nagging guilt that I didn't wise up sooner. You know, he was conservative, shall we say, and I was a liberal, a pinko liberal nut job, as he would call me. So, you know, I think we were always kind of chalk and cheese in a way. So I think that relationship is something that I'm always going to struggle more to kind of figure out, and therefore want to write about more. So yeah.
Take us right back to the early days. Was there much music in the Lightbody house? Was there much music going on?
No, not at all. Not really. I think there was like 7 pieces of vinyl in the house, and 5 of those were definitely country music. I remember Merle Haggard. I remember a Dolly Parton, Kenny Rogers record. I remember Mo Bandy.
Mo Bandy, brilliant.
And there might have even been a Conway Twitty in there. And there was the I don't think it was the London Philharmonic Orchestra. It was a famous orchestra does the songs of Lennon and McCartney. So it wasn't even any Beatles albums in there, but the songs of the Beatles were in the house. They were on one piece of vinyl. So I think that's probably where they became lodged in my brain before I heard them properly. And there was a Nana Muscuri record, not country obviously, and I always found it fascinating because my mum and Nana Muscuri are complete doppelgangers. They look the same. So I was like going,
My mum's released an album.
is this your album? So those were the records I remember in the house, but I don't think there was any more than 7 or 8. So,
But that Northern Ireland thing of country music, you know, most houses in Northern Ireland would have had Jim Reeves and they would have had maybe a bit of Merle Haggard.
Yeah.
We've always been drawn a bit to the sadness of country, haven't we, the Irish?
absolutely, you know, and I went on in my life, and probably not till my 30s, to go back to those country records and go, oh my God, they were right under my nose this whole time. My whole life, they've been sort of in front of me, and I've not fully delved into them. And yeah, there's some extraordinary music on there, but like obviously, I got to go to university already an indie and rock and metal fan, but then go and meet Tom Simpson and get into soul music and hip hop and R&B and funk and techno and you know, sort of electronica. And so I kind of went on this massive musical journey, and then sort of maybe came back to a bit of country music. But
you ever come back to Nana Muscuri, or is that's a bridge
no,
too far?
I couldn't. No, I don't know. It's no offense to Nana Muscuri. I can't imagine any of her songs. I can't remember any of them. So apologies to any Nana Muscuri fans. But yeah, it was. There wasn't a lot of music in the house. My mum and dad liked. They both liked Elton John, and my mum loved the Carpenters, particularly loved Karen Carpenter's voice. So I know that those were two favourites of theirs, but other than that, it wasn't like it was me and my sister that would turn the radio on for the top 40 countdown on Sunday back then.
Did you record it?
And I recorded it, and had, you know, you'd miss the start of songs and the end of songs, and you know.
Home taping is killing music, Gary. To say it on the album sleeve.
Absolutely, you know, we were the problem back then. But it's you know, it was a house of big songs at the time. You know, the big pop songs of the day. You know, whatever Madonna or Belinda Carlisle, whatever it was, before I got into metal around maybe 11 or 12, you know, it would have been maybe.
Is that when you picked the guitar up then?
I picked the guitar up, I got asked for a guitar for Christmas either when I was 11 or 12, because I thought I was going to immediately, it's the same thing when I sit behind a drum kit today, to this day, I think, well, this time I'm going to be able to play it, having had no practice. So back then I got a guitar, and I was like, well, I'm going to be Angus Young immediately, and realized that there was a lot of practice involved, and that I still don't have that dexterity to be a lead guitar player. So that was never in me. I didn't know that then. I'm sure there's ways I could have, you know, like by playing it more, playing the guitar
by
more.
Applying yourself
by
more,
applying, yeah, it could have been, but I don't think I'm a naturally like fast sort of soloing guitar player. Don't think that was ever a possibility. So the guitar got shoved into the back of the cupboard, and it didn't get taken back out again until Nirvana.
So Nirvana is a key moment, isn't it? The Belfast appearance of Nirvana. Are you there, Gary?
I was there in 1992, yeah. Still the greatest gig I've ever been to. And
why? What connected?
Nirvana, Teenage Fan Club, and the Breeders. Like, I mean, Stevie Wonder, Marvin Gaye, Aretha Franklin. That gig would probably beat it. But like, I can't imagine like three acts that I've seen in my life, that were available for me to see in my life, that could ever top that gig.
Was that a light bulb moment? Was that a kind of road to Damascus for you? Did you?
Yeah, I think I've told this story before, but like, my friend Mark Greenfield went to the closest record store to the school on our lunch break, and he came back and he listened to the first half of Nevermind, and on the bus on the way home he gave me an earphone, which back in those days was those orange earphones,
Yes,
but they had a
yes.
bendy thing, so you could bend it around. So he listened to one ear, I listened to the other, and the first song I heard was the start of side B, which is Territorial Pissings, which is come on people now, smile on your brother, everybody get together, try and love one another right now, and then like it was like hearing, I have no idea, it wasn't Angels, wasn't the other thing either, but it was something.
Some sort of calling.
It was it was a. It was an awakening in that moment. I can remember it, and maybe the details are not the same, and maybe you know, like all those details get changed over time, and as we tell stories, they change and they shift and move around in us. But this hearing the song has never changed. You know, that moment of like, oh, this is different. There's a line in one of my favorite novels, Grab Onto Me Tightly As If I Know the Way, where the lead character, Vim Sweeney, says, something is happening here, and that resonates, you know, like, I don't know what it is, but everything is different now, you know. So, and then getting to see them play live and having that experience, where you carry the gig home with you, with the ringing in your ears and with all the, you know, the experience. You live the gig for days. There's like aftershocks of the gig for days, and yeah, it was kind of just thoroughly shook my whole life up.
So the kid who's sitting in the kind of basement or kind of below the house
yeah,
playing the guitar,
was in
pumping out the cover versions.
A wee sort of room that I was sort of in beside the garage, and I would be from then on I'd be writing songs. I never really learned how to play the guitar. I got guitar lessons, 5 guitar lessons from a lovely, lovely man, but I just didn't take to learning the guitar in a conventional way. So I kind of just took the chords that he had given me in those five lessons, and I just started, you know, mucking around myself, and all I wanted to do was write songs. I see artists. I've met artists many times over the last sort of 30 years. Next year, it'll be 30 years, and they have, you know, like just a perfect recall of other people's songs, other people's lyrics. I've even known artists that have been able to hear a song once and sing every word of it, because they grew up playing other people's songs before they started writing their own. I never did that, so I have no framework, and that's why I don't remember other people's songs. I'm terrible at playing covers, and I don't remember my own bloody lyrics when I'm on the stage. I wish I had that foundation, but maybe everything would be different if it hadn't started that way.
But it interests me, Gary, because a lot of people pick a guitar up as a kid and they thump out tunes or their favourite songs. But you knew pretty early on that you wanted to write. You knew you wanted to write your own songs. So that's something a bit different, isn't it?
These songs were not good, by the way.
Regardless of quality, you knew.
Some people would still say they're not good.
You knew you wanted to do this, though. You knew you wanted to be a writer of songs, not just a performer. You wanted to do your own thing.
Yeah, but I don't remember any great sort of master plan or grand plan about oh, I want to be a songwriter. I was just kind of doing what felt natural, and that's always been the way that I've sort of written. Is like I'll pick the guitar up and I'll just put my hand different places on it. Oh, that sounds good. Oh, okay. So I'm not. And then I got worried that if I learned the guitar better, that would leave me. That instinct would leave. So I never really did. So I've always been sort of stuck in a place in terms of a technical ability. I'm not that much, but in terms of an instinct, melodic instinct, I think it's, you know, that's never left. Depending on whether you like the melodies or not, you know, like it's for me, you know, that's the bit I enjoy, is the writing of melodies. I don't worry too much about the playing and the lyrics of it.
There's a beautiful REM song, Find the River, which is a key song in
I
your...
worry about the lyrics.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I don't worry too much about the playing.
Find the River, REM, it's a beautiful thing. And it's a key part in your story as well, because that's where you kind of make a performance at school, don't you?
Yeah, the first time we played live was a school concert, and I sang with it, played with a bunch of guys from school. Find the River, REM, the very first thing I ever played live, and
What reaction?
a positive one, and
Was that you then? Was that you? I like this. I'll have a bit more of this.
yeah. No, it was a good experience. It wasn't we've had a lot of different type of experiences over the course of, certainly in the first 10 years of our career, where maybe 5 people show up to the gig, 1 person shows up to the gig, but that first experience was a good one. So I think that did sort of light another little fire in the brain.
The spark was set off a little bit there. Dundee University then, and you kind of head off to that.
Yeah.
It's odd to have to go to Dundee to get together with mostly Northern Ireland guys, isn't it? But
Started a Northern Irish band in Scotland, yeah. I arrived in Dundee on the 31st of September, 1994, and met Mark McClelland on the 1st of October 1994. We started a band that day, and I think we were working together then that week, in my...
that was Shrug, was it?
That was Shrug. Really terrible name. But yeah, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it's been the same. It's been the same band ever since. A name change doesn't matter. There's so many bands that have had different names at the start. It doesn't matter. This is the lineage. The 30 years that we've experienced has been this band. It's been always moving in this form. Form hasn't changed. People have. But.
And things happen pretty quickly initially, don't they? It's presumably that you then thought this is the way it goes. You get a band together, you get signed to an indie label, everything's good. Initially, it was pretty quick, wasn't it?
Certainly in the first term at Dundee, we had our first gig in the Students' Union, and we were signed, I think, we had an EP done in that first term as well. And we were signed at the start of 1995 by Jeepster Records, who just signed a band called Rhode Island. There's another name change, who would go on to be called Belle Sebastian. And they would have a massive success with the Bells. We didn't have massive success for them, unfortunately, but because they're a great bunch of people.
Did the academic studies just go to the wall, or did you try to balance both, playing in band and also doing some studies, or did you just use your university experience to do the band thing?
I did, unfortunately, not. I think about it a lot. Bit
of guilt there still, is there?
Yeah. I think about doing a degree. I have a degree. I crammed for my exams and I got my degree, but I didn't. What I have learned in my life has been post-university. I had all this knowledge available at my, at my fingertips, and I just didn't. I kind of wasted it, and I think about doing another degree all the time to kind of make up for it. But yeah, it was pretty much the band took over everything.
But the love of literature was always there, and that goes back to school as well, doesn't it? And the interest and the passion for the Seamus Heaney's of this world and the great writers from this country. I mean, that's always been there. Yeah,
my English teacher, Mr. McKee, and still
call him Mr. McKee.
I do. When I see him, I call him Mark, but it feels weird. But he introduced us to all of us. Davy Matchett, he's over there, absolute legend of a man. And Davy and I were in the same class at school, and we were sat beside each other because Lightbody Matchett, so L&M. So that's how we met, and Mr. McKee was our English teacher, and introduced us to Seamus Heaney, to Bob Dylan, and to Van Morrison. So it wasn't just an English class or a conventional English class. It was, it felt like another, it felt like life lessons more than anything. Like he read. I didn't really listen at school that much. I'm not very academically minded. I love reading now, and over the since I left school and university, more than I did when I was there. Then I wasn't really awake in class, and he read Digging by Seamus Heaney, and I went, I'm sorry, what just happened? It was so Nirvana and Seamus Heaney are the two biggest influences in my life, because Nirvana made me want to play guitar again, take a guitar out of the back of the cupboard, and Seamus Heaney made me want to write words, write lyrics, write poems.
And what is it about Heaney and the great works of Heaney that still speak to you? Because they still do, don't they, Gary?
With the greatest of humility, I like and reverence, I turned some of Seamus Heaney's poetry into songs for an event recently at Queen's University, celebrating the 25th anniversary of the Good Friday Agreement, called Seamus Heaney Centre Presents Hope. And so I did 3 of his poems, turned them into songs.
It's been quite emotional for you, that.
It was an emotional night, actually, and it's like really nerve-wracking. I haven't felt that nervous walking on stage in a long, long time, because it's not and I have a terrible habit of forgetting words. So I was like, my eyes were just like laser focused on, like, just to make sure I didn't forget any words at all. And I think I did okay. But yeah, he's still a big part of my life, and obviously his connection with this island that we all live on, north, south, east and west. But I think something just resonates, something just reverberates in my soul when I read him that it doesn't happen often, in one's
There's a
life.
humanity there, isn't there? There's a decency and a humanity there. One of the things that always interests me about the Snow Patrol story, Gary, is the resilience. Because you mentioned it in passing.
You say resilience, I say belligerence, but okay.
Belligerence, well, they're closely related in a way, aren't they? Because you're talking a decade where things don't click the way you'd hoped they'd clicked, and you'd hope that things would happen really quickly. And, commercially it doesn't happen, but you stick with it. Other people may have said, well, it's not working. We'll knock it in the head. But you stick with it, and the success comes. Have you ever looked back on that and thought, why did we have that belligerence, as you say?
I don't know.
It's got to be a drive. It's got to be something in you to keep going.
Because there was so many. There was literally people, friends, family going, "What are you doing? What are you doing? Surely you've got to knock this on the head at some point."
Did you ever get to that level? No.
Not all my friends, by the way. Some friends were supportive all the way through, but some people were like questioning, and not in any kind of like, maybe when I wasn't there, but to me they were more concerned, about this isn't going to happen. It doesn't happen after 10 years. The amount of bands that have been going 10 years and then have success is like, you can count on one hand, and so it's very unlikely this happens. So what was the reason? It's the only thing I ever wanted to do. I knew that once I gave it up, that was it. A part of me would die. Like, a part of me would I'd never get it back. So I guess you
had no option.
I didn't want to quit. It was going to have to be like, someone's going to have to just take this from me, because I can't let go of it. So yeah, it was foolhardy in a lot of ways. I mean, it paid off. I say obviously, everybody might know the story. Plenty of people don't know the story. But like, when Run became a hit, it was by accident, really. Not by accident. It was it was out of our control. You know, Joe Wiley, bless her for always. Thank you, Joe, again. Played all 6 minutes of Run. People might have thought at the time, oh, you guys are sold out. I deliberately made Run 6 minutes long so that it would never be a single. That's how attached I was to my indie. I was like, I'm not giving it, I don't care. I've written some choruses in this album, but it doesn't matter. I'm gonna sink this ship. I'll figure out a way to break it. And Jo Wiley was not deterred. She played the whole thing on Daytime Radio 1, and it changed everything. So my I had belligerence or resilience or whatever you want to call it to keep going, but I'd also got a very sort of like a very unhealthy case of always had, you know, sort of self-destructiveness, you know. So it was only because of her doing that at that time. It was December 2004, December 2003. The album had been out for 5 or 6 months already.
It did take a while, didn't it?
It hadn't
to
gone
kick in.
anywhere.
It took a while.
So we re-released the album in January after she played it on the radio, and record company kind of went, we're going to need to put a radio edit of this song out. And I was like, okay. Still unsure as to whether I'm selling out or not. And it's like, of course, you realize over time that if you're making decisions because you think this is what you want people to hear, then yeah, part of you is selling out. But I never have, not ever in my life. I've always made the music that I want to make. And it just so happened that from that time on, a few people want to hear it. And I'm never going to compromise that. And maybe it's only stands to reason, you know, bands don't normally last 30 years. They certainly don't go 35, 40. So it stands to reason that people might run out of love or patience or whatever for us at some point. But I'll never stop making the music that I want to make, and collectively we want to make. You know, there's nobody in the band that's going along with music because, you know, somebody's sort of dominating the conversation. It's like everybody's like in it, or we go, well, let's change it. But it's never changing it because we think like, oh, there's the charts. We want to be in the charts. Why?
Final straw, when it does take off, it really takes off,
Yeah.
Gary. And this roller coaster, as the cliche goes, it starts rolling. And there's big highs and there's big lows as well. Did success live up to what you wanted it to be? And as you were a kid sitting thinking, I'll be a rock star, everything will be all right, and I'll play my guitar. And did it live up to it? It must to some degree it must have. Or were you instantly disappointed by what?
No, not instantly. We had so much fun in those years. The band's timeline can kind of be broken up into 3 10-year segments. The first 10 years of hard graft, but not really getting anywhere. But still had a ton of fun. It was great crack. And then the next 10 years we were just on tour or in the studio. There was never a time when we had any time off of any length, any significance.
Do you regret that? Do you regret that you really went for it that much?
I think the elastic snapped a fair few times mentally for all of us at some point, you know. Somebody was, everybody was, we'd found this out after the fact, but everybody was dealing with something at some point, and we never talked about it at the time because nobody wanted to derail what was happening. And we had that sort of Northern Irish thing of like, oh, we have to just do this and say yes to everything because we don't want to be rude. We don't want to be, we're like, these things are being given and we have to just be grateful. And of course we are, and we were, and I still am, and all of us are. But you also have to take care of yourself, and we just didn't do any of that. We weren't working, you know, a dangerous job catching king crab in the Bering Sea, or trying to cure cancer, or doing anything that's sort of truly worthy in the world. But in the context of what we were doing, it was chaos, really. You know, like we just didn't stop. And when you do that over a prolonged period of time, which was nearly 10 years, you're going to have some repercussions in your mental health. And I didn't have the strongest mental disposition going into it. So after that was kind of picking up the pieces a little bit. I think that's why it took so long to make the next album. So it went from Fallen Empires in 2011 to Wildness in 2018, and I think it was
That's the period you were picking up the pieces.
finishing the tour in 2012. The Fallen Empires tour finished in America in 2012, and that was a real slog at the end of it. Nothing against America or anybody came to those gigs. It was a personal thing. We weren't really talking to each other, and it was a difficult time.
The elastic had snapped a bit.
All of us. We just run out of time, run out of patience, run out of energy, and at the same time really aware of just how lucky we all were, and feeling really guilty about feeling this like, oh, we can't do this anymore, but we have to do this because
This is what you always wanted.
This is what we always wanted. So,
But it's killing you.
yeah. I mean, eventually it would have. I think if we had went another album and then another tour, I think we'd.
So what pulled you back from that,
Yeah,
Gary?
I was
Because
drinking too much. Yeah.
you know, everybody goes through those periods when they have success like that, where you maybe self-medicate, and with you it was booze and whatever. Pharmaceuticals were on offer. But what pulled you back from the edge?
A lot of pharmaceuticals.
Was it yourself? Was it family again? We're back to family.
Friends, more than family. My mum didn't know about the drugs. She knows now, bless her heart. She wasn't happy about that. Of course she wasn't. She's my mum. But I think my dad used to say, never drink alone, son. Never drink alone. And after that tour finished, when we were taking time to ourselves, I didn't know how to take time to myself. So I just went drinking every
Alone?
day. And in LA, I had a great bunch of friends, but LA drinking they're not out every night. They're not out every night. I'm sure you can find people that are out every night, but a friend circle I was in wasn't out every night. They had responsibilities, families, whatever, and I was just in LA on my own, looking to go out every night. So I just started going out on my own, and I was drinking. I mean, I was drinking in the house probably mostly, but drinking and taking drugs and doing it on my own.
Sitting in the corner of a bar? Or?
Yeah, sitting in the corner of a bar. With those words from my father always looping in my head, never drink alone, never drink alone. So there was this weight that was on, not only the weight of being an alcoholic, but the weight of like feeling, I know fine rightly I'm not doing the right thing here. And there was one time I was in a bar that I like to go to, and I was, I don't know, 7 or 8 pints in, and this couple sat down beside me, and all of this happened wordlessly. They sat down and saw me, looked over, saw me, looked at each other, nodded, got up, all wordlessly, walked to the other side of the bar and sat down there. And I was like, shit, I'm a mess.
You're the guy people's avoiding?
I'm the guy, yeah. So that really shook me up. And there had been friends that one friend in particular who had helped me through so many things, saved my life. She'd been saying for a while that I needed to slow down. And then I got sick. I got really bad infection in my head, and basically the whole thing, and ears, eyes, nose, everything. And the doc was like, you can't. I was supposed to be flying 2 days later to go to see Northern Ireland in the Euros, in France. And I'm like, well, I'm flying over to France to go to the Euros, and the doctor's like, you can't get on a plane. But the pressure in the cabin would be like 1,000 knives in your head. I was like, I was still thinking,
How can I get there? Yeah.
I'm gonna go. That's how fucked I was, and it's realized I can't go. I was absolutely gutted. I was so gutted. I'm so gutted. I missed that. I missed the Euros. My own fault. But I stopped drinking then, and I haven't had a drink since. So that June the 3rd. So it was 12 days before my 40th birthday. I stopped drinking. So my 40th birthday, which, you know, for somebody who was drinking as much as I was, would have been a big one, was my first sober birthday. And I stopped the drugs as well. I stopped, you know, just cleaned my life up as best I could.
You mentioned that you weren't always, the right disposition for the rock and roll lifestyle. So depression and darker moods would always have been there for you, Gary, as a kid even? And
Yeah.
it's not rock and roll that kind of brought it on. It didn't help necessarily.
No. It's not rock and roll's fault. I don't think it's nobody's fault. I had such a loving family, amazing family. My mum and dad were awesome. My mum is still awesome. And my sister and I fought constantly, but that had nothing to do with my depression. And now my sister's and I get on so well, and she's one of my absolute heroes. But I just always had this sort of self-doubt, self-loathing right from an early age, and
You always harden yourself as a kid?
yeah, very, very hard on myself. I was never doing it right, but it was me that was saying it to myself. I was never doing it right. And then anybody else that ever did say, you know, like, oh, you're crap at that or whatever, I'd be like, well, yeah, I know, yeah. But there you go. There's the evidence right there, and and for the first 10, 15 years of being in the band as well, I had grown up reading the NME, reading the Melody Maker, reading all the magazines, and so I was like dying to see our name in those magazines. And when I first did, it was so exciting. And then we started getting all these really bad reviews. After Final Straw, which was really well reviewed.
But it's the set 'em up, knock 'em down thing, isn't it?
After that, it was brutal, and that really, like, it hurt me more than I would normally admit, because you can't really admit that, because you don't want to invite more of it. But now I just don't read it anymore, but I didn't know that at the time. I didn't know to avoid it.
It's taken you a while to get
Figure all the shit out.
Isn't it? Ways of coping. And it's something you have to do on a daily basis, I presume, is to keep things in check. And
Yeah, 100%.
you've been a great campaigner for mental health in music and for people checking themselves and staying in check.
Yeah, there are so many ways of getting into trouble in your head. You know, you get attaching to your thoughts. So many people have it. You know, having those intrusive thoughts, having the looping in their heads, feeling that they're not good enough, feeling that they're doing something wrong. You know, it's finding a way to sort of try and you are not your thoughts. We are not our thoughts. They're not. This is not the story of your life that's happening in here. Mm-hmm. This is just a collection of noise, all the words available to you, happening at the same time, and it's trying to figure out a way of detaching from it, of like letting your thoughts be those leaves on the river, on the top of the river, that are just flowing past you, rather than standing in the river and picking all the leaves up and, you know, being sort of weighed down by it all, which is what I was doing for so long. And it's like, sort of, sometimes you need to shock yourself out of it. Sometimes you need to try and calm your life down, sort of in a more general sense. I like going in the cold. I do that every day, like an ice bath or a cold shower, or getting in the sea, getting in Belfast Lough every day, because it resets everything. It feels like you're brand new every day. And yeah, sure, thoughts come, go, whatever, and sometimes you get attached to them. but just remembering that thing, like you are not your thoughts, you're not, and trying to get that out to people that might be feeling that way, feeling sort of trapped in their own heads, I think is important. Once you know that that is true and what's happening here is not true, then you know you need to sort of say it as many times as possible.
The breakthrough, isn't it? If you can get to that point.
Yeah, it's not easy. You have to be vigilant. You know, there's so many ways in which we can, you know, make our lives better. But some of those ways cost money, and all of those ways cost time. But it's like, how much time do you want to give to feeling better, as compared to how much time do you want to devote to making yourself feel shittier? You know, it's like you know, if the balance, if you think about the balance is, you know, like, can you take 10 minutes out of your day to do a meditation, or just to be by yourself if your world is hectic, or phone a friend if you're feeling solitary, or get out in nature if you're indoors too much. You know, it's like all these ways in which we can sort of change our environment, like literally, so that the environment in here softens a little bit.
Took a while to get there, Gary, but it was worth the effort, wasn't it?
Yeah. I'm a absolute work in progress, still completely not finished, nowhere close to finished, 1% finished maybe, no, 0.1%. So, you know, like, also, I'm no expert on this stuff. It's just lived experience that is maybe rings true with somebody when they hear it.
Anybody who's seen you guys live and has seen something like Chasing Cars, when an audience responds and when an audience throws that back at you, I can only imagine how that feels as somebody who made it and put it together. It must be a magical thing. Those songs that have connected, those songs that have become outside of yourself, they've become something else, haven't they? Something like Chasing Cars. It's when an audience gives that back to you, it's a special thing.
Yeah. It never gets tired, never gets old. People have asked me in the past, you playing the same songs every, like, you know, some songs you play every set, but, you know, Chasing Cars one of them. Like, we're never going to shy away from a song that's popular just because it's popular, you know what I mean? It's like, I want people to have a really good time when they come and see us play. They want to hear Chasing Cars and Run and Open Your Eyes and just say yes. It's like, we're not going to not play those songs. And I think it's important, you know, again, going back to that sort of communal thing where everybody's, you know, if there's an opportunity to have everyone singing along, then everybody in that moment forgets about what, like, including us, like, forgets about what's going on in their heads, or forgets about what's going on in their day, or what, you know, if they've had a shitty day. And we all have an experience together and feel connected in that way. It's I cannot put it into words what it's like, but it is a revelation, really, to us, standing on stage watching this incredible audience singing along to a song that you wrote. And, you know, Chasing Cars was written Jack Knifeley's studio shed that he had in Kent when he was living there, and Run was written in a flat in Glasgow, and the electricity had just gone out. We couldn't afford to fill up the electricity card. You know, so like these songs that were written in, you know, most songs are written either in solitude or with one or two or three other people. Every song I've written has either been me on my own or me with one other person. So taking it from that place to a place where 80,000 people, like at V 2009, is maybe one of my favorite shows of all time, or Ward Park, 1, 2 or 3, although 2 does have a special place in my heart, an even more special place than collectively all 3 together. You know, they have an exalted place in my heart. But like hearing a crowd singing at that volume, I mean, it doesn't even, you have an out-of-body experience. It doesn't compute in your head.
Where's the weirdest place you've heard Chasing Cars? It must have turned up in lifts, or you must have heard some odd
I've definitely heard
moments.
It in places, you know, like you're in a city somewhere, maybe 5,000-6,000 miles away from Belfast, and, or like, you know, I don't know, Bangkok or somewhere, or Tokyo or somewhere, and you're like, okay, how, you know, how's this happened? But But I think the strangest experience I've had, the and I love it so much, but the Red Hot Chili Pipers did a bagpipe rendition of it, and I think that it just gave me so much pleasure. I think I smiled all the way through when I heard that the first time. So it does. There's been so many cover versions, and if you flip through like Spotify chasing cars cover versions, you know, it's like it keeps going on and on and on, which is extraordinary that so many people have loved that song enough to do a version of it and record that version and put it up on Spotify. It's like it's a lot of effort to do that, and there's thousands of them.
Ward Park was a phenomenal communal experience across the three events. It's still something that you must hold very close to your heart, it being the hometown, it being a connection with what you'd done, what you'd gone off to do, where you'd been, and you brought it back home. So pride must swell up at the mention of Ward Park, Gary.
Yeah. The first one, we didn't know what we didn't know if it's going to work. We didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know what if it, you know, if we'd sell tickets. I don't know. It was a punt, you know. Ward Park wasn't a place that had a gig with that many people at it. And it was so extraordinary that we had to do it again. And then Ward Park 2 was, I don't even know how to describe Ward Park 2. It was unbelievable. It was unbelievable.
Fever dream. Did it really happen, Gary?
I have no idea. You guys very kindly recorded it, so I know that somebody that looked like me was on that stage. But every time I go to the shops to get my shopping or whatever, somebody would come up to me and go, "What about Ward Park? What about Ward Park 3?" You know, and it took a wee while. Obviously, Ward Park 2 was 2010, and then Ward Park 3 was 2019, was it? And we got there, and it was my dad's last gig. He was in the care home at that point, and dementia was pretty bad. But the people that worked in the care home busted him out for the night and brought him along, and he was in a wheelchair, and he sat at the side, like on the stage, at the side of the stage, and so he saw the show, and then 6 months later he passed away. But during the show, Bono had arrived, and I was hearing updates in my ear during the show. It was like, because if I step on a pedal on my thing, the mic cuts off to the audience, but I speak to the crew. So I was like, "Is he here yet?" And then we get like, "No." Okay, cool. All right. And then I heard he's here, and that was maybe 2 songs before he was coming on. I knew that he was. Everybody knew that he was going to be. It's going to be. You know, the time that he arrived on time. He didn't arrive before the show started, so that's why, you know, people were a bit nervous. And Natalie, who works with us, was standing beside Bono, and Bono was like, "Is that gentleman there Gary's dad?" And she said, "Yes, he is." And bless Bono, he went over and he chatted to my dad for like 5 minutes. And Natalie took a wee photo. So I've got a photo of my dad and Bono together. And my dad, for the rest of his life, told that story to anybody that would listen. And all the rest of my family didn't get to meet Bono, but my dad got to meet him, and he would just tell just random people, oh, by the way, Bono and I are really good friends. So he got that story, and
something beautiful about that, though, Gary.
I'm so happy that happened.
That you were able as well to kind of resolve some stuff with your dad.
Yeah. It was my 30s, early 30s. Again, way too late. politics would come up at the dinner table, and we'd just go at each other, you know, like a lot of families do, I suppose. But I just wish I'd stopped continuing the I realized in my 30s, if I just didn't bring politics up,
It's all good.
then we could just talk about whatever, talk about football, talk about the old time, talk about him growing up. I heard so many stories about him, about his life, you know, growing up in Derry, and he was born in Glengormley, and then the family moved to Derry. That I wouldn't have heard if we were at, you know, odds at loggerheads all the time. I'm so grateful for that. So yeah, our relationship changed massively. Yeah.
And his pride in what you'd done, you were able to feel that.
Yeah, for sure. He would tell everybody. There was a band that would come to the nursing home to play, you know, songs, mostly kind of probably show tunes and things like that. That the people there would relate to. Music has a really powerful effect on dementia patients.
Can really unlock.
Yeah, like it lets people sort of like opens people's minds that are sort of locked in there. And my dad would always ask for Chasing Cars, and they would play Chasing Cars. And I heard that story. It was very touching.
And giving something back to the musical community here, Gary, it's something you've done really from as soon as you could. Really, it's been very important to you through things like the OES Centre and through the foundation and through your record label. It's important to help pull people up, the next generation up as well. And it's something that you've done through the success of Snow Patrol, and something I imagine you're very proud of is that you've been able to help the next generation to get a footing at least.
Well, whatever I've done, I don't know if I've helped. I try my best to help in any way that I can. But you know, the thing that I am most proud of in this music scene that we have is that the way that everybody helps everybody now. You know, like, it might not have exactly been that way when we were sort of growing up in it, although we were more sort of in the Glasgow scene at the time. But like coming home, it didn't always feel super collaborative. And maybe that was just an outside. Maybe we felt like outsiders, and maybe that was the problem. It could have very easily.
Is that the
been,
Bangor thing? Is that slightly outside of Belfast?
No, I don't know. But it didn't feel as welcoming. And yet, in the last 20 years, it is completely changed. The music scene has, of course, expanded in so many different ways. So many great artists in so many different genres, all making extraordinary music. But they all work with each other, playing each other's gigs, playing each other's records, like lift each other up, are really supportive. It feels so much less negative now in Northern Ireland in the music scene, and that to me is such it's showing a way to be together in this place, whether you call it Northern Ireland or whether you call it North, or whatever way in which you feel, you know, you identify with this place this beautiful place that we live in. It's the musicians are going, well, this is the way we can all live together in literal harmony. I mean, but you know, peace and harmony are like said often together because people think that they're the same. People assume they're the same thing, but they're not. Peace is completely different than harmony. We have peace, we don't have harmony. But with the way when I see the musicians kind of leading the way of like how we can be harmonious, it makes me just really feel positive about the future, about the present, yeah, It's far from a perfect world that we have, but there's some things in it that are spectacular, and music and art are those things that make our life so much better, so much easier to endure if you're going through hard times. Yeah, I'm just really proud to be a part of the Northern Ireland music scene. I feel like that the bands that we work with and the bands that I've encountered know more about the music business and how to promote themselves and how to get out of there in the world than I ever did at their age, and maybe still don't know. You know, I learn as much from them as than they do from me, and maybe even more from them, because I'm really inspired by the musicians that I see here.
And you're home, and all the adventures in LA and the adventures stateside, they'll continue because you'll always be working, you'll be writing, you'll be collaborating, you'll be doing whatever projects you're doing. But you're home.
Yes.
Bangor's always brought you back, and
Can't
get rid of you.
Can't get out. Yeah, Bangor can't get rid of me. You know, I'm very happy to be home, sort of, properly. I was sort of half home, half in America, for a while there. But for the last 2 years, I've been home fully, and yeah, I'm absolutely loving it. And I've just seen. I see the sort of beauty of home in a way that it sort of feels new to me. Every day I look out my window and see Belfast Lough, it looks like someone has just painted a new picture, and I'm like, oh my God, I think I fall in love with the place every day. So,
and to have family beside you as well.
Yeah, we all live pretty close to each other, which is great, and was always what I wanted for when I was away a lot, so that when I did come home, I'd be close to family. But yeah, it's been awesome.
And you're not as hard on yourself as you used to be, Gary. So you can appreciate some of the good things you've done. What are you proudest of?
Oh God!
If I was to say to you, there are a lot of things going on. A lot of things have happened over those decades. You look back and you think, no, I'm happy with that. I'm happy I did that.
You know, I find it hard to sort of look back and go, oh, this was great, or this was great. I don't know. I guess I'm proud that I'm still alive.
Did you make it?
That I made it this far. I didn't think I would.
Was it really that bad? Was it? Did you think, if I continue on this path of destruction, that's me?
Yeah. There wasn't. I didn't think I would make it to 47. What age am I? Whatever age I am.
It's good. You don't even care, you see. So
I don't care. No, I don't care. I never really thought. Like I sweat the small things. I'm always talking to Davey about these things. He's like, bless him. Like, he's listening to me, and he's one of my dearest friends in the world. But like, I'm sure in his head he's going, God, sweating the small things again. But I don't sweat the big things. Like death, I can think about and not be like, oh, I'm gonna die. Like, if I could sweat the small things a little less, that'd be great. That'd be great. I think that's the next sort of thing to try and battle a bit.
And the passion's still there for the music making. I mean, we talked about this forthcoming album. You still get the excitement. You still get the buzz.
This is the thing when you said what you're most proud of. I'm most proud of the next thing. So I'm really proud of. I'm really excited about what we've done on this new record. It's as clear and joyous and expansive as we've been as a band, I think, ever. When I'm playing the songs to my friends who I trust very much, all of them have said, and like, these are people that'll go, nah, this is not good. And that's how you know you got a true friend. And when somebody tells you that it's not good, you hate it. You don't want to be told it's not good, but at the same time, they've all said this is the best stuff you guys have ever done. So that makes me very happy that it's all seems to be going really well in what we're doing right now. Trying to experience the now as best I can, not think about the past too much. These albums I'm very proud of.
Reminded of the past constantly, though,
yeah.
isn't it?
But I'm not going to dwell too much on it.
If you could talk to that kid playing the Iron Maiden covers in the basement, thumping away at the guitar and imagining rock stardom, if you could just talk to him, would you have a piece of advice? Would you have a line of wisdom? Hard-won wisdom, I would imagine.
Part of me thinks I'd be too afraid to knock him off the path that he needs to be on. and there's a lot of stuff that I needed to learn the hard way, and that makes you stronger. Sometimes I can do the other thing sometimes too, but I would kind of like to be able to convince him to not be too hard on himself, but I don't think I'd be able to convince him of that.
He's set in his way. He's going to be hard on himself. That's the way it's going to be.
Yeah.
It's been some journey, Gary, and you know, congratulations on everything. Looking forward to the future as well and the new material. But what a CV to look back on. What an incredible array of artistic work you've left us. Gary Lightbody, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, James Ralph. You're a legend.